The Western Wildcards are making life miserable for their favorite opponents, and the Maple Leafs and Panthers are on a collision course. Welcome to NHL Wraparound Stanley Cupdate for Friday, April 25th, 2025. Vic and Neil in advance of the weekend, and a couple of big-time whoopings in the West last night.
Yeah, there was, and a couple of surprises too, I think, because I expected something out of Jack Eichel and the Vegas Golden Knights, even though the game was now transferred over to Minnesota. And I didn't expect St. Louis to put a whooping on Winnipeg the way they did, even though the game was in Missouri. I didn't see that coming. I thought St. Louis might win, but not the way they won.
They literally had their way from the outset of this game. Pavel Buchnevich winds up getting a hat trick. He'd had one goal in 22 career playoff games entering this one. He scores at 48 seconds in 3:11 of the first to get the Blues going. And St. Louis had a 37-13 attempt edge over the Jets in the first period. So a lot of times you see this, that when the venue changes, home team comes out with a vengeance, and it's up to the visiting club to try to hold that game intact for the first 10 minutes. And that did not happen for the Jets last night.
No, I think what happens in these playoff games is Winnipeg wins the first game, wins the second game. They don't make many adjustments because they won, and they don't see a lot of flaws in their game. Jim Montgomery and his St. Louis Blues go back and make a ton of adjustments because they're not happy with their results. And those adjustments work really well for St. Louis in their own building, along with some serendipity for them. And you get a result like this. I would expect Game 4 to be very tight after a 7-2 game for the Blues.
So in addition to the 3 goals, Buchnevich had an assist. Cam Fowler, who never had as many as 4 points in a playoff game, had 5 in this one. Robert Thomas with 4 assists. Here's an area of concern that I think needs to be addressed here. Connor Hellebuyck has given up at least 4 goals in 9 of his last 12 postseason games. He was chased when the score was 6-1. With Eric Comrie coming in, and he also had a key turnover when the Jets were trying to get back into the game, mishandled the puck behind the net, wound up becoming Buchnevich's hat trick goal. And the invincibility that we see with Hellebuyck during the regular season, it's somewhat now starting to become a habit that during the course of the playoffs, this is a different goaltender.
One could say that for sure. We'll see how he comes out in Game 4 and what he does to turn his game around. I mean, for St. Louis to win 7-2, Vic, the goaltending couldn't have been good. I mean, that honestly, it doesn't matter what the name is in the net. The goaltending couldn't have been good to win when the eighth seed beats the first seed 7-2. I mean, it just, you can take that for granted.
Well, you can't take it for granted, but the other piece of this is that the Blues are, they're an 8th seed, but as we have seen, so much of this is about matchups. And the St. Louis Blues are a good hockey club, and they won 12 games in a row to solidify their playoff berth. So this is no pushover team. This is no accident that this series is being this tightly contested. And quite frankly, as we had said, they could have won one or both of those games in Winnipeg. And very seldom do you see in a series where the first 2 games are that close and both go to one team. You very rarely see that series go to 3-0 because things start to level themselves out. And I believe that we saw that on Thursday.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think that those things you said are all very valid. And it'll be up to Winnipeg, Scott Arniel, and the Winnipeg Jets to come up with a game plan for game number 4. Because if you're Winnipeg, game 4 is a huge game in any series. And I'll tell you why. Because it's either going to start the series over again, and it's now a 2 out of 3, or it's going to make things almost impossible for the team who goes down 3-1. So it's 2-1 for somebody, and I'm just saying in any series, a 7-game series, if it's 2-1 for somebody going into Game 4, that Game 4 is a huge game because it either makes it so it's Mount Everest to climb out of, or it's brand new and all bets are off.
I'm a bigger fan of K2 than Everest. I just want to drop that in there.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. I know you're a mountain climber.
Yeah, sure. I'm a mountain climber when I read books. That's about it. I enjoy through somebody else's misery. But lest we digress here, the other end of the ice, Jordan Binnington with only 16 saves, but he made a stop at 3-0 mid through the second period on a Jets power play on Cole Perfetti. This play was reviewed for about 5 minutes to see if Binnington's glove was actually over the goal line. Ultimately, the save stood, which was the original call on the ice. But in its own way, Binnington continues to have Hellebuck's number.
Oh, Binnington has played stupendously since the Four Nations. I mean, he's been a different goalie than before the Four Nations. I didn't think he was all that, in a bag of chips before the Four Nations, but since then he has been just tremendous. So, and by the way, I thought that puck was over the line. We were watching the game, and
Yep.
I actually thought I saw the black puck in the glove over the line. And I'm not saying they got it wrong, because they got way more cameras and angles and things than I got, but I thought it was in.
I thought that the shot that we saw from inside the net, the one thing that you couldn't determine was whether there was white between the front edge of the puck and the goal line, and ultimately they had to stand by the original call on the ice.
They should have said there was no clear determination, or whatever the wordage is that they use when if you can't see clearly that the call on the ice was wrong, the call on the ice stands.
Yeah. Nonetheless, a great save, and one that could have potentially flipped the game for Winnipeg, but didn't. Just an injury note in this game, Dylan DeMello sat out for Winnipeg due to an illness. And one final item here. 131 hits in this game. Now, the interpretation of a hit clearly varies from venue to venue and what the actual definition of a hit is. Is it separating player from puck? Is it body contact? Whatever it was 131 last night. And it's been an average of 91 per game in the first 3 games of this series. So both of these clubs could certainly use an extra day off, because Game 4 of this series will not be until Sunday.
And I think that's going to benefit Winnipeg. I really do. I think that that's going to give them a chance to be together on the road and get ready and shake off this bad loss they just had. I really think you'll see Winnipeg play really well Sunday at 1:00.
Another team that's got to play well and now is playing from behind, the Vegas Golden Knights, who drop a 5-2 decision to the Minnesota Wild, who now lead the series 2-1. Isn't it something that with Kirill Kaprizov healthy in the lineup, this offense has gone from dormant to formidable?
You might say doormat to formidable, because their offense was doormat. But those guys, I mean, Boldy, Eriksson, Ek, they're taking that to a new level. They got the team on their back. They want to win.
You could see how confident this club is. I mean, this is the team that we saw break from the gate at the start of the season when everything was going well for them. And it almost appears that they're kind of bookending their season with great start and certainly a terrific start to these playoffs, winning 2 out of the first 3 against Vegas.
And healthy wins. I mean, these have not just been lucky wins. Yep. These have been, formidable. So Bruce Cassidy and his Vegas Golden Knights are going to have to quickly figure things out today, because they play again on Saturday at 7:00.
Let's talk about Vegas for a second, because uncharacteristic of that club, a couple of poor decisions on two of the Wild goals. One was a clear up the boards by Aiden Hill, who wound up getting lifted in the third period for Akira Schmid. And then a reverse by Noah Hannafin that was intended for Alex Pietrangelo, which got picked off and led to a goal. So some of the small details here, just in terms of puck management, are really starting to bite the Golden Knights, and the Wild have been very opportunistic.
Absolutely, because confidence will do that to you. And I think that the Wild getting these players back and getting some wins under their belt, all of a sudden are a very confident group. And they have knocked the confidence out of the Knights. As I just finished saying to you about the other series, and I want to reemphasize this game 4 is going to decide the series.
Mm-hmm.
Because you will either start over and have a 2 out of 3, and 2 of them will be in Vegas and only 1 in Minnesota, or Minnesota will take a 3-1 stranglehold on this series.
We talk about small details, and we just spoke about the puck management by the Golden Knights. Ryan Hartman, looking up at the clock just before it was about to expire, throwing it to the net, and Kaprizov scored his second goal with 2 seconds left. Basically sealed the game right there, because I believe that Vegas was starting to come a little bit, starting to play a little bit better. And you get a goal like that in the last 2 seconds of a period. That's just a killer.
Oh, you go into the locker room down 4-1, and it is a killer. And I didn't notice that or see that, Hartman looking at the clock thing, but obviously he was looking to see if they had time to put it in or was time running out.
So far in this series, Jack Eichel and Mark Stone, typically very good playoff performers, high production guys, they are firing blanks. Through the first 3 games, Carlson finally managed an assist on the shorthanded goal by Riley Smith to make it 4-2. But perhaps something that's coming under the radar is the goaltending by Philip Gustafsson, who on consecutive power plays late in the third, he made a magnificent stop on Stone, and he finished the game with 30 saves, and has just done a terrific job so far in the series.
Yeah, and he is flying under the radar, that's for sure. But Gustafsson obviously has the confidence of the organization, of Coach John Hines and the rest of the guys on the team, because there was no question who was going to play in these games, and that was Gustafsson.
You've heard of Go West, young man?
I did hear about that when I was younger.
Well, we're both young. We play it young on the podcast.
Well, that's right.
All right. Well, we're going to go East, young man. And in the Eastern Conference, the Florida Panthers now with a 2-0 series lead over the Tampa Bay Lightning with a 2-0 win in Game 2 on Thursday. Anthony Cirelli, who was questionable for this game time decision, he did play for Tampa, but really didn't matter because Nate Schmidt, who had 5 goals during the entire regular season, gets his third of the series. A long slap shot against the grain against Andrei Vasilevsky at 4:15 of the first period. So any juice that Tampa Bay had coming out of the gate in this game, it was squashed. Because after that goal, Emily Arena was dead all night.
Yeah, the arena went silent, and it was a one-timer shot, and it was like just put a pin in a balloon. It sucked all the oxygen right out of the building.
I love the term a professional win. And that was a professional road win for a championship hockey club. From my seat, I didn't think they were in trouble the entire night.
No, I didn't think they were either. They played it very well. Bobrovsky's playing well for them in the net, made several really good saves. But even when Tampa was on the power play, and I really like Tampa's skill level, but they didn't look the same. Florida has gotten into their psyche as well as playing really well, and they've got Tampa not being able to find their game.
Speaking of that, here's a power outage for the Lightning. 0 for 5 on the power play, 19 shots on goal. So Bobrovsky had a pretty easy night. Did make some good saves, but generally speaking, wasn't a tough night in getting his 4th career playoff shutout. And the Lightning only had 3 shots on goal in the 3rd period. So what you're seeing is the ability of a club that knows how to shut it down. Shut it down.
It looked to me like Tampa was just incredibly frustrated and just was like little kids that get mad and don't want to, because they're not getting their way. I'm not saying they were immature or anything. I said it just appeared that they were just so frustrated that they couldn't play their game, their offensive puck control game that they do so well. They weren't able to do any of it last night.
And to make matters worse for the Lightning is when they were trying to come back in the 3rd period, they wound up having to kill off 5-minute major, which was actually 4 minutes and 18 seconds because 42 seconds were played 4-on-4 on an interference penalty to Brandon Hagel, who lowered the boom on Alex Barkov, who did not return. And his status for Game 3 is going to be questionable. What do you think of the hit?
It should have been a 5-minute penalty. Barkov didn't have the puck. Barkov didn't expect the hit. And Hagel's shoulder went right into the face of Barkov. He got up, and he's a big guy. He got up and went off under his own power, but never returned.
And at the end of the game, after Sam Bennett sealed the deal with an empty net goal, a little bit of chirping to Nikita Kucherov, who is starting to exhibit some signs of frustration, and it harkens back memories for both of us to the sweep that, at that time, the President's Trophy winning Lightning absorbed at the hands of the Columbus Blue Jackets.
In the only playoff series that the Blue Jackets have ever won, I believe, in their history. Yeah. John Tortorella being the coach, 4 straight in the first round. It was just stunning that year. But to me, it feels like that. It feels like a team that's not even being able to play in this series. They're not even competitive right now, and they're not getting to play the game that they play so well during the regular season. So I'm really interested in Saturday's game. I know that it's in Florida. I know that it's in Sunrise. It's an afternoon game. But John Cooper, who everybody raves about, including me, saying what a great coach he is. He's been in the league longer than anybody else. He coaches Team Canada. He's won a couple of Stanley Cups. What will he do to get this machine going?
One of the things that may help is whether or not Captain Barkov is in the lineup for the Florida Panthers, but player that they're getting back, Aaron Ekblad, who is now eligible to return after serving a 20-game suspension for violating the NHL's policy on performance-enhancing drugs. So this just makes a good defense better and a welcome addition to the Panthers lineup.
Obviously, the Department of Player Safety in the NHL found the hit by Hagel egregious enough that he is going to have a hearing with the Department of Player Safety over that hit. I would think he'd get something. I don't think they meet with you or talk to you and then do nothing.
This is a suspension that I believe would probably get 2 or 3 games in the regular season. It feels like a 1-gamer here.
Well, I think it depends on whether there's an injury to Barkov, because they take that into consideration.
Yep.
But this is only making bad things worse for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Hagel is a huge part of that team. He's a second-line force. And for him to act out like that and then be taken out of the lineup for Game 3, which I'm not sure, but I am very confident that he will not play in Game 3. That's a big loss for the Tampa Bay Lightning trying to claw their way back into the series.
35 goals during the regular season worth.
Yep.
Final game of the evening, the Toronto Maple Leafs are on the verge of being the first team to punch their ticket to the Final 8. Consecutive overtime wins, 3-2 on Thursday against the Ottawa Senators. The Senators came out really strong in this game, Neil, and the Leafs managed to withstand this initial push. It was something that we expected. And again, we saw that the Toronto Maple Leafs have become comfortable playing defensive hockey until they can get the game back on their terms.
Yeah, I think one of the issues in this series, and I know they're close, and I know 2 games have gone to overtime, and you can say they could have gone either way. But let's face it, Ottawa does not have the finishers that Toronto has. They can't just all of a sudden get a goal like Matthews got. They can't just suddenly come up with goals. Yes, Brady Tkachuk is great. He really is. He got the game-tying goal. But they don't have the finishers that Toronto has, and that may be something they're going to have to work on in the offseason to find more guys that can put the puck in the net. I never saw this game last night as a game that could go to Ottawa. I actually thought the whole night it was going to be Toronto. And of course, overtime is overtime. You can't say I knew Toronto was going to win in the overtime, right. But I thought they had the game in control most of the night.
Did you have Simon Benoit in your overtime goal pool?
No, I did not.
For the 5th time in this series, the Leafs score a goal off of a face-off win. And Benoit, who got an assist on Max Domi's goal in Game 2 and also set up the screen so Domi's shot could get through, scores this one from the left point. And these are the little things that appear to be going right this spring. And again, this is just one series, so let's not get over our skis on this. But you could see small differences from past playoff years to this year for Toronto.
Right. And Toronto did end in first this year, something they haven't been able to do. So they didn't get that formidable opponent of 2 versus 3. They are getting a wild card team. They are getting a team, albeit a huge rival of theirs. They are getting a team that was a wild card team that's 7th in the conference. So that is going to help Toronto to be able to get their game where they want it to go. I'm not putting down Ottawa. Yep. I'm not saying anything. It's been 2 overtime games, but Toronto did earn a break by ending in first place this year. It's not like their first round demise to the Boston Bruins when they went out in overtime in Game 7. This is Ottawa. This is not Boston.
And you mentioned earlier about Brady Tkachuk's game-tying goal that came with 8:38 left in regulation, but that was one of only 2 shots that the Senators had in the third period, and I believe that the Maple Leafs actually defended quite well in that final period. They went ahead on goals by Matthew Knies, who scored the 5th Toronto goal on the power play in this series, and you'd mentioned Matthews' goal. What a slick play by Mitch Marner behind the net with that cute little redirect out in front. And Linus Ullmark was looking right when he should have been looking left.
We all know the skill level of Marner is huge, and now he's showing it even in the playoffs. His banker better be ready for a nice bank account.
At least in this series, I think the one thing that we are seeing on a consistent level, there was no panic in this Leafs team. Finally, it appears to be that they are playing with the confidence that they know we finally have a whole bunch of tools in our bag that we could bring out at any time.
Yeah, and I think you got to give Craig Berube credit for that because of the way that he's leading this team and what he expects out of this team, and they're giving him what he expects, at least in this series, at least in the first 3 games. I see a whole different brand of Leaf hockey than I've seen in the past.
They will look to lock this series up Saturday, Game 4 in Ottawa at 7 p.m. So the Friday games, and this is an all TNT TBS night, kicks off with Washington and Montreal at 7 o'clock. Capitals lead this series 2-0. I really expect the Canadiens to come out with a lot of juice here. I don't know maybe quite to the degree that the Blues came out with and the Wild came out with on Thursday, but I expect a lot of jump from Montreal, and I think the Caps better be ready for this.
Oh, I think so too. I mean, we haven't seen a game at the Bell Center, a playoff game, in how long? It's been it's been since COVID, right?
21.
Yeah, 21 was when we saw the last game at the Bell Center 4 years ago. So I would expect that place to be raucous, and I would expect that Montreal will jump up on this occasion, and Washington better be ready, which I'm sure they will be.
That first 10-minute thing, huh?
Yep. In Montreal, that you don't want to keep hearing that organ playing.
You've had enough of the bunny hop over the years?
It's a tough place to win. The Montreal Forum was even worse. For the New York Rangers, it's always been a tough place to win.
The Forum was, but the Bell Center, particularly in the playoffs, was very friendly to them.
Yes, that's true. We the first year of the Bell Center, it was called the Molson Center, and we were able to win in the playoffs in there. So you're right about that. And they took a 2-0 lead, too, at the Garden.
Yes,
they won both our home games, but we came back 4 straight.
But let's fast forward to this year. In this game, I'm going to be watching to see how much ice time Patrick Laine gets. I would think that maybe the statement that Marty St. Louis made in Game 2, sitting in for the entire third period, maybe that's a thing of the past. Or maybe his shifts will be limited. Once again, maybe just to the power play. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, who knows with Laine, what Marty St. Louis will do. And Marty St. Louis, it's not as if he was Bob Gainey. He's not a defensive guy. I mean, he was an offensive player himself.
Yeah.
And yet he's getting, he's obviously frustrated with Laine's play.
As other coaches have been in the past.
Yeah, that's for sure.
At 8 o'clock on TBS, Carolina plays Jersey in Game 3. The Hurricanes leading that series 2-0. And you have some updates from the morning skate.
I do have some updates from the morning skate, and that is that Jonas Siegenthaler is on the ice, the defenseman.
Yeah.
Looks like he's going to play for the Devils. That's a great addition. However, Luke Hughes and Brendan Dillon, neither one took the morning skate, so that means they won't be playing tonight. And it's going to be tough, again, for the New Jersey Devils to play without Jack Hughes, Luke Hughes, Brendan Dillon.
I think of all the venue shifts from games 2 to 3, Carolina is probably going to be the one that is the least phased by going into opposition territory for the first time.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, going from Washington, D.C. to La Belle Province and Montreal, and that game shifts there. And L.A. Takes that long flight over the border and into Edmonton, Alberta. So, yeah, Carolina into New Jersey is a piece of cake.
And I think the one thing that we can count on is, the Hurricanes are going to play the same way, whether they're playing in Carolina, New Jersey, or on Saturn.
And Vic, I think if Anderson plays the way he played in the first 2 games, I don't see how New Jersey can come out with this game. But if Markstrom can outplay Anderson and Anderson let in some smelly ones, Jersey could steal a game.
Anderson probably could not play any better. And that's not to knock him at all. But he could not have played any better than he did in game number 2.
He played great.
Yeah.
Played great. And then I think is trying to get rid of those naysayers that say that he can't do it in the playoffs. And we'll see. Again, he's got to win this round. Before you're going to say he's a guy that can carry them, he's got to win this round.
And you got to remember, a season ago, he was fine in the first round. And then when he got to round 2 against New York, some of his errors, particularly in that 6th game, prevented the Hurricanes from bringing that series back to New York for a Game 7 and enabled the Rangers to lock that series up.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're absolutely right.
Last game of the night, Los Angeles, as you had said before, crossing over into Alberta for Game 3 against the Oilers. They're taking a 2-0 lead into Edmonton, 10 o'clock on TNT. What a statement the Kings have made in the first two games, winning that wild 6-5 overtime game, but then coming out and completely shellacking the Oilers in game two, locking that game down, I think the way they wanted to lock down game one.
Yeah, and it's going to be really important, obviously, for Edmonton, and it's going to be amazing to watch what these stars on the Oilers can do against LA. Now, I don't think Edmonton has the goaltending, and we'll see. LA is really good at home, but they've been also really good on the road. So obviously, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to say that this is a huge game for the Edmonton Oilers. If they lose it, they're down 3-0, and your chances of coming back on that when you've been beaten as badly as they've been beaten. You know, I want to make one mention of one thing. I've been involved with teams where you've come back from down 3-0, but the first three wins could have gone either way, and maybe the other team even got a bit lucky to grab one of them. Right. So you knew in the locker room that this, like, come on, guys, we can beat these guys, and you came back and beat them 4 straight. But these games with LA and Edmonton so far have not been toss-ups.
What does Chris Knobloch do with that last change in games 3 and 4, for that matter, to perhaps get Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl away from the checking lines that the LA Kings and Jim Hiller are going to bring forward?
You just said it. He has the last change. So he maps out who he wants those guys on the ice against. And every time LA ices the puck and they're dead tired, out will come 29 and 97. And probably Bouchard on defense as well with his rocket, and maybe even Hyman is on that line. I mean, they have a lot of different weapons on that team. I mean, you just start mentioning them, but LA is that good defensively and can lock it down. So that's going to be such an intriguing game.
You kind of stepped out of character after game 2. You were actually quite kind to Stu Skinner. However, the numbers are what the numbers are. And do you make a change to Calvin Pickard if you're Knobloch?
No, I wouldn't. I'd keep going with Skinner. Because if you go to Pickard and he loses, you're screwed. You're done. If you stay with Skinner and he loses, okay, maybe then you can put Pickard in and say, you know what? We're going to try this. It's like pulling the goalie, right, at a certain point. Yeah. I just would stay with the guy that got you where you are.
Before we wrap this game up, you got to look at this LA Kings forward group that keeps getting more and more confident. Quinton Byfield, remember we did our breakout players in our playoff preview with Craig Button. None of us had Quinton Byfield, who just looks better and better and really starting to mold himself into a true power forward. Adrian Kempe has been terrific. Kevin Fiala has been terrific. Anze Kopitar leading by example for a change. And their defense, that's a tough fortress when they're going.
No, it is. It's really good. And Jim Hiller deserves enormous credit for the way this team is playing in his first year as head coach with the LA Kings. And I'll tell you, Rob Blake deserves a lot of credit for the Kuzmenko deal, picking him up at the deadline. I mean, this is a guy that people were putting out to pasture, and he's come in and done a great job for them. So, I mean, maybe this is LA's year to get through a couple rounds.
It's the late game, but I don't think I'm falling asleep on this one.
No, I don't think so.
Just one quick news item before we go to this day in Stanley Cup history. Rasmus Ristolainen, defenseman for the Flyers, now out 6 months. He had right tricep surgery on March 26th. Now they have a timetable for him. He will miss training camp and is expected back late October or early November.
I have one other player note for you.
Go.
Patrick Laine was not on the ice for the morning skate.
Big update.
So that discussion we had about Laine and will St. Louis play him and did he bench him? Maybe he was hurt sitting on the bench. If you're not out for the morning skate, you're not playing.
There was some talk that he did get dinged up in the second period, although St. Louis had said that the reason he didn't play is because he liked the players that he had out there better.
We'll see tonight anyways, but that's a big update.
Very good update. Can I now go to this day in Stanley Cup history?
Yes, I can't wait.
You can never wait. This is like, you wait for me to pull the curtain up on these every day, and here we go. We're going to talk great, and we're going to talk magnificent. This one will not have the entertainment value of Thursday's Day in History with Rick Janaret's call of Brad May's goal in 1993, the May Day call. But on this date, April 25th, 1985, Wayne Gretzky scored 7 points in a playoff game for the second time in his career, 3 goals, 4 assists, in leading the Oilers to a sweep over Winnipeg in the Smythe Final. The Oilers would go on to win their second straight cup later that spring, defeating the Philadelphia Flyers in 5 games. And Mario Lemieux does them one better 4 years later. 5 goals, 3 assists in a 10-7 win over Philadelphia in Game 5 of the Patrick Division Final. What happened to teams clamping down and playing defense in the playoffs?
This was the 80s.
In that game, Lemieux had the fastest hat trick from the start of a game in playoff history by the 6:55 mark of the first period. Lemieux tied the record for most points in a playoff game set the previous year by Patrick Sundstrom of the New Jersey Devils in a game against the Washington Capitals. And he also joined Maurice Richard, Darryl Sittler, and Reggie Leach as the only players with a 5-goal game in the postseason. So dialing it down a little bit in terms of some of the big memorable moments, but these two players, certainly the best of their times.
Oh, for sure. For the 80s, Mario Lemieux and Wayne Gretzky, and into the 90s, but mainly in the 80s when Oilers were winning those 4 Stanley Cups in 5 years, and then Wayne making hockey popular in Los Angeles when he went there. And Mario, of course, captaining 2 straight Stanley Cups in the 91 and 92. Just fantastic legends of the game.
And so different because nobody before, since, or perhaps ever will see the game the way Wayne did. But I don't believe anybody has had more raw talent than Lemieux.
Oh, fantastic talent. When you think about it, it was during the hooking and holding and obstruction era, and this guy's 6'6" and could do what he did at 6'6" and not get his long arms and legs and everything else held up by other players. I mean, it was great. And that's why they called him the Magnificent, because he really was magnificent.
What else is magnificent is that we're actually going to drop a show early Saturday. There's a 1:00 game. We want to get the update out to you folks. So we're going to do shows Saturday and Sunday of this weekend. And you ready for it? Ready to stay up late?
Oh, yeah, of course. I'm always up late.
All right. Well, we're going to see how sharp you are, though, after watching that.
Oh, I don't know
LA.
about that. I'm like a broken pencil.
How's that?
Pointless. I'm
All
pointless.
Right. Well, you're going to have to bring something to the table. Thanks for listening today. Please subscribe, like us, and like we said, we look forward to speaking with you on Saturday before a 4-game slate kicks off.